In the high, forgotten mountains of southern France, there is a forest that does not feel empty, even when no one is inside it. The trees grow so thick the light barely touches the ground, and the silence feels like it's watching you. Long before the world had cameras in every pocket, long before science could explain the unknown, there was only fear, and what lived inside it. In the year 1764, that fear became real, and it took a name, the Beast of Gévaudan. Gévaudan was not a place of comfort. It was isolated, poor, and cold. Families lived miles apart, separated by vast, unforgiving terrain. Children walked for hours alone, tending to livestock or running errands between tiny villages. The forest stretched endlessly, a permanent shadow over the land. Darkness wasn't something that just arrived at night. In Gévaudan, darkness lived there, and something else lived there too. Something that watched and waited. The first torn body belonged to a young girl named Jean Boulette. She was just 14. Her corpse was found in a field near her home. Her throat had been ripped open. The skin was peeled back from her face. This was not the work of a scavenger. The attack was controlled, calculated. It felt personal, as if something wanted her to suffer, wanted to send a message. The parish priest who recorded her death simply wrote that she was a victim of the ferocious beast. He had no idea how many more entries like that he would have to make. After Jean, the attacks did not slow down. They multiplied with terrifying speed. A woman dragged from the edge of her own farm while her husband watched, helpless. A child pulled into the trees just feet from his friends. A shepherd found gutted in the snow, his flock scattered and unharmed. Soon, the number of victims reached 30, then 50, then it passed 100. And for a long, long time, there were no survivors. There were only remains. There were only screams, recorded by witnesses who always arrived a few seconds too late. The men of the region, farmers and laborers, armed themselves with pitchforks and old muskets. They formed hunting parties and walked bravely into the woods. Some of them never returned. Those who did, they were changed. They spoke quietly after that. They avoided the trees. They avoided the darkness. They avoided being alone. They told stories that made no sense. They said the creature didn't just chase its victims. It studied them. It would follow people for miles, staying just out of sight, learning their routines, picking its moment. This wasn't just an animal hunting for food. This was an assassin. Descriptions from the few who caught a glimpse of it varied wildly. Some said it was as large as a calf, with reddish-brown fur. Others swore its fur was dark, almost black, with a stripe down its back. They described a head that was too wide, a chest that was too thick, a tail tipped with a strange tuft of hair. But every single witness, no matter how different their story, agreed on one chilling detail. It looked at them like a person looks, not like an animal. There was a mind behind its eyes. It was intelligent. News of the terror in Gévaudan eventually reached the royal court. When King Louis XV heard about it, he was humiliated. A monster was hunting his people, in his kingdom, defying his control. It made him look weak. So he did what kings do. He sent soldiers. He sent his best professional hunters, men famous for tracking and killing wolves all over France. They descended on Gévaudan with their superior weapons and their arrogance. They killed hundreds of real wolves. They brought them back to the villages, declaring the beast was dead. But still, the killings continued. The truth was becoming terrifyingly simple. It was never a wolf. Then, the villagers began reporting something that made no sense at all, something that defied the laws of nature. When soldiers cornered the creature and fired their muskets, the bullets would just flatten against its hide. Metal crushed on impact, falling uselessly to the ground. It was as if its skin was reinforced by something unnatural, like a kind of organic armor. You don't argue with physics. But what do you do when the thing you're reshooting at doesn't seem to obey it? Panic turned to a deeper, more unsettling kind of dread. As the official hunts failed again and again, a darker theory began to circulate in hushed tones around fireplaces. What if the beast wasn't a wild animal at all? What if it belonged to someone? In the 18th century, exotic animals were a secret status symbol for the wealthy elite. Nobles displayed creatures no one in rural France could even name: hyenas, large mastiffs, war dogs trained for extreme cruelty. But this thing, it wasn't just violent, it was precise. And that kind of precision requires training. It requires intelligence, both from the animal and its master. Was it possible that one of their own, a local nobleman, had unleashed this terror upon them, either by accident or on purpose? The focus of suspicion eventually fell on a local family, the Chastels. They were reclusive, known for their skill with animals and their strange, solitary nature. The father, Jean Chastel, was an experienced hunter. Then, in June of 1767, 3 years after the first attack, Jean Chastel went hunting. He sat in the forest, reading from a prayer book. Legend says he loaded his rifle with a silver bullet he had blessed himself. When the beast appeared, he didn't panic. He finished his prayer, raised his rifle, and fired. The beast was hit. It ran, but minutes later, its body was found. The terror was finally over, but the story doesn't end there. Because what happened next is perhaps the strangest part of all. The body of the beast was paraded through the villages, then taken to be presented to the king. But along the way, it began to decompose rapidly. By the time it reached the royal court, it was so rotted that the king refused to see it and ordered it to be buried immediately in an unmarked grave. No one was allowed to keep it. No one was allowed to study it. It vanished from history, as if it had never existed. Today, the forest of Gévaudan stands silent. The wind blows through the same trees, but there are no bones. There is no skeleton. There is no physical proof left anywhere. Just history books that disagree with each other.